So the rematch between the All Blacks and the Springboks has taken place this weekend. It is in Wellington, a location where lately New Zealand don't boast the best record. Overall, a strong performance at Eden Park, and now it is up to Scott Robertson to either decide to make a few switches or stick with what worked for that last test match. And in this video, I'll be trying my best to predict the All Blacks lineup. Now, I don't think we're going to see a huge amount of changes here. New Zealand are able to get that first win, and if they can beat the Springboks again, it puts them that one step closer to the Rugby Championship for this year. But Rassi has already announced his side. He has gone with a lot of youth in his lineup, quite a few interesting selections, but I don't think we're going to see that level of experimentation from Razor for this game. But jumping straight into the front row, I believe this is where the All Blacks will actually go with just a little switch here. Number 1, Ethan de Groot. Number 2, Samisoni Taukei'aho. And number 3, Tyrell Lomax. Ethan de Groot, once again, keeping that spot as the number 1. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Tamaiti Williams get that number 1 jersey for his first start since being injured. Number 2, no matter what, there was going to be a change, and that is due to the concussion of Cody Taylor. Did take a pretty rough head knock in the Eden Park test match, so there was absolutely no way he would be playing in this Wellington matchup. But Samisoni Taukei'aho has been quite the impact player for New Zealand off the bench. He's been strong when it comes to scoring tries, and also his work rate has been incredibly impressive. So as bad as it is that Taylor is out, I do think this is a great time for Taukei'aho to get himself the chance. Now, I will mention Asafua Moa did miss out on getting added to the All Black squad. Instead, it will actually be George Bell as injury cover. Now, Asafua Moa probably was the front runner, other than the fact that he is also concussed at the moment, so a little bit of bad timing for Amoa in this case. But number 3, I do think we will see Tyrell Lomax get himself the start. Now, he was the predominant starting tight head from last year. Fletcher Null, I think he will be reunited with Tamaiti Williams as the Crusaders duo, and then also off the bench, if we do see either George Bell or Brodie McAllister, it means an all-Crusader front row together making their way off of the bench. But moving on to the locking duo, this is where I don't see them making any significant changes. Number 4, Scott Barrett, and number 5, Tupavai. Tupavai, one of the standout players for New Zealand throughout that first test match. He was getting into absolutely everything. The line-out game overall was strong, even though the Springboks stole a couple. New Zealand are able to say the same back, and I do think that line-outs are such a significant part of this second test match. We do see a little bit of a switch for South Africa heading into this next match. Ludiaga as the 4 alongside Ruan Nokia, so a lot of line-out steal ability. And with a new hooker for New Zealand, it does mean that they need that stability, and I don't see them switching either of them. In this contest, most unlucky man, you'd have to say, is Fabian Holland. He will once again find himself more than likely making his way off of the bench. But I also do think that the loose forward trio for New Zealand, it did enough so that no one in that department ends up losing their jersey for this match. Moving on to the loose forwards though, number 6, I believe they will stick with the same. Simon Parker as the blindside flanker. Number 7, Adi Savia, managed to get that crucial turnover in the later stages of the last match. And then number 8, Wallace Satiti. Now, we could see Tupavai theoretically go into that number 6 jersey to put Holland into the starting side, but I just don't know if this is the game to do it. It's a tricky scenario because you're up against a young, inexperienced Springbok team when it comes to their side compared to what we saw in test match number 1. So the last thing the All Blacks want to do is make too many changes and almost fall into the Springboks game of making a lot of switches and seeing whether or not they work. For this contest, the 9-10 combination, I'll be honest, I think it's going to be the same. Number 9, Finlay Christie. Number 10, Beauden Barrett. I thought Finlay Christie had one of his best games in an All Blacks kit. He was doing everything he needed to. Yes, there was no magical, flashy stuff from Christie, but he did his job. It was wet conditions as well, which probably made it a lot more challenging for Christie. But Noah Hotham, it is rumoured that he is going to be back and available, but I wouldn't risk it. Go Finlay Christie and then Preston off the bench. Yet again, Beauden Barrett didn't actually have the kicking responsibilities at Eden Park. That was probably one of the more surprising factors of the early stages of the game. In fact, Geordie Barrett was the man who took that first kick, and then we did see Damian McKenzie make his way on and take over from that role. McKenzie is a very tricky one at the moment in terms of whether or not they chuck him back in the starting side or whether we do see him once again more so used as that impact player. I'll be honest, I'm up to the number 10. Haven't decided what I'm doing with that back three as of yet, but we'll move on to the centres. This is where I don't see them making any switches, although we could see a Leonard Brown move into number 13. It is something that Razor has done in the past, but more than likely I think it will be Jordie Barrett number 12 and also Billy Proctor. Jordie Barrett, he did suffer a bit of a head knock in the last test, but did pass his HIA, so I believe he will be available for this contest. But overall, the backs probably weren't tested as much as we expected. In the first match up against South Africa, there were a lot of handling errors coming from the box, which I do think helped New Zealand keep a bit more structure in their back line. But Jordie Barrett was solid. He was getting his hands on the ball often. And then Billy Proctor, we're still waiting. We know it's coming soon, that big Billy Proctor performance, and perhaps at Sky Stadium in front of his home crowd for Super Rugby could be the game that we do see Proctor shine in the back three. Number 11, this is tricky because Caleb Clark has now joined back with the squad. A lot of people wanting to see him for test match number 1. Rieko Ioane, he didn't have a huge amount that he did throughout that first match, but one substantial moment I think made his selection justified, and that was when he was able to hold up Oxenshare and stop him from scoring that try. When you look at the overall outcome of the game, that was a turning point. That defense from the All Blacks, as well as a couple other significant moments. And Rieko, he had that big moment. So it's whether or not Scott Robertson would back him again on the left wing. Caleb Clark doing well for his Bunnings NBC side, Auckland, once again getting himself a try, just like he normally would. I don't know if they'll take Rieko out here. And the reason I say that is because we saw the injury of Amoni Narawa. So we will already get to see one significant change in the back three for New Zealand. And I just don't know if Scott Robertson would risk making another change. But he does need Caleb Clark to get some minutes. I think based off the selections we've seen this year, in terms of sometimes being pretty safe, which at times hasn't been a bad thing. It was what helped the All Blacks have that same foundation at Eden Park. So for that reason alone, I think they will stick with Rieko Ioane. But I would not be one bit surprised if we do see Caleb Clark get that starting jersey. Out on the right wing, this is where we will see a change. Amoni Narawa not looking too flash after that rib hit in the first test match. So because of that, I think there are 3 options at the moment for that right wing position. The first would be to go back to Sevu Reece, seeing as he has already played there throughout the Rugby Championship. The second would be to put Will Jordan from 15 out onto the wing and then have Damian McKenzie slot in as the starting 15. Or the last option would be Will Jordan to the right wing and then give Ruben Love the start in this Wellington Test match for the Rugby Championship. Now, out of those 3, I believe the most likely we're going to see is probably Sevu Reece. Back out on the right wing, he'll be marking up with Ethan Hooker, a young talented player from the box. He did make his way off the bench in the last contest, but I would have to say it may not be the most popular choice, but I do think that is what we will see from Razor heading into this matchup, unless, of course, he's feeling a little bit adventurous, then we could see maybe Will Jordan go out to the wing. But number 15, if he's not playing right winger, he will be in that 15 jersey. Will Jordan, he's been struggling a little bit under the high ball, but I don't think that can be held against him. He's still an absolutely dangerous player. We saw that brilliant attack and run that led to his try in the first test match. So he will be somewhere in the starting side this weekend. It's just that question of 15 or 14 for Will Jordan. Moving on to the bench, 5-3 split for the All Blacks once again here. I believe it will be Brodie McAllister, number 16, number 17 to Mighty Williams, and number 18 Fletcher Null. Like I said, reuniting those Crusaders, having them all off the bench at the same time. Now, New Zealand scrum did struggle at times up against South Africa, so they will have to be very much aware of that possibility and try and limit those handling errors and limit the opportunities for South Africa. And the set piece, number 19, Fabian Holland. Number 20, this is where I don't know if they'll go Karefi again or whether they'll look at a Peter Larkai or maybe Luke Jacobson, who returns from injury. But once again, I do think if we're going to see more of the same, I think it will be Du Plessis Karefi. I don't see them switching too much here. They had a pretty solid first match overall, the All Blacks. So if it isn't broken, don't fix it. So I'd still say Karefi the most likely. At number 20, number 21, Kyle Preston. Number 22, Quinn Tupaia. And number 23, Damian McKenzie. So the same bench with the exception of the front row. Tupai had a really good impact off the bench for New Zealand, but I just don't see them starting him ahead of Jordie Barrett, unless, of course, Barrett has suffered that concussion. But getting himself a try off the bench, Tupai, probably a big confidence booster for the man who has lacked minutes at times throughout this year. There's also the chance that we see Caleb Clark on the left wing, maybe Rieko Ioane as that number 23. But I do think for a game like this, in a rematch up against a side that you've just beat, who have made many changes, you want to leave some of those uncertainties out of the question. So I don't think we're seeing more than 5 changes here for the All Blacks. In fact, we'd be lucky to see 3, and 2 of those are injury-based for the Kiwis here as well. But nonetheless, Scott Robertson, he will be announcing his side on Thursday. Like I said, South Africa, they have already announced their team. Many changes have been made, but for New Zealand, it could be more of the same. And could it be a second victory up against South Africa at Sky Stadium? But thank you all very much for watching. Do let me know who you think Scott Robertson will be selecting. Is there half a chance that we see a whole different team taken to the field, giving everyone the opportunity before heading into the Bledisloe Cup? But thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all for the next one.